welcome to Debbie's Back Porch. Today we're in the kitchen, and we're in the kitchen with a lot of tomatoes. It's July. Tomatoes are coming in. We have tomatoes everywhere. I have here a pan full of beautiful, perfectly ripe red tomatoes ready to make salsa. If you look behind me, you'll see there are about 400 more pounds, so I need to get working. Salsa it is. What we're going to do is make National Center for Home Food Preservation's choice salsa. Now this is a salsa that they put together so that people could really have some flexibility in putting together a salsa that's to their taste. Salsa is a very special kind of thing to can. The reason is because it's a mixture of high acid and low acid foods. And you must do those in very measured amounts in order to make sure that they are safe for water bath. Because as you probably know, high acid foods can be water bath canned, but low acid foods must be pressure canned. So in order to make sure that your salsa is safe to water bath can, you must follow a tested recipe. Well, people like their salsa and they like it the way they like it. So National Center for Home Food Preservation, which really exists only to help us can safely, put together and tested a recipe that covers a broad range of seasonings and peppers and onions and tomatoes and whatever else you want to put into your salsa. So that recipe calls for 6 cups of chopped tomatoes and no more than 9 cups of low acid vegetables. And your low acid vegetables would be your tomatoes, would be your peppers, your onions, your garlic if you're using garlic, and cilantro, but you won't use enough of that to make much difference, and it's generally a seasoning. But those are the main ingredients that most folks put in their salsa. So we're going to do this in a couple of steps, and I thought since I had everything out, this would be a good time for me to teach you how to peel tomatoes, if you don't already know. So the first thing we're going to do is peel tomatoes. Okay, I have sort of an assembly line here. I've done this a lot, so I have it lined up in order. These are tomatoes that have already been washed. I have my roaster going, and the water is good and hot. I usually do 6 at a time and count about a minute. What I have here, cameraman, what I have here is a colander set up on a pan. I'm going to put my tomatoes in here, peel them, and let the excess juice drain along with the seeds. And when I'm done, I will put them in this bowl. My goal here is to get about 6 cups. This bowl holds 6 cups to the line. So that's how I figure it. If I wanted a different amount, I have different bowls. But for right now, I'm wanting 6 cups of tomatoes. I'll peel a few just to give you an idea of how I do it, and then we'll come back afterwards and I'll show you how to peel. We're back. As you can see, the tomatoes, the skins are starting to peel. So let's drop them into some ice water. I'll show you how we peel a couple and how I prepare. Give them a second to get cool because they're really, really hot. Cameraman, let's show this bowl. Ready? Okay, I do it this way. I cut it in half. Now, I'm catching all of this juice. And then I cut off the core and pull the peel off. Now for salsa, we want to get some of the seeds out. You can't get them all out, but I get some of them out and drop this in my bowl. I will eventually chop these up. For right now, I'm just showing you how easy it is to peel. The juice that I'm catching I will actually can is tomato juice. We'll put it together with some other tomatoes that I have run through in the food mill to make it a little bit richer. But it's wonderful, and I can't believe that for many, many years I actually threw that away. But when I started canning it, my husband loves it, I love it. It's a nice cool drink in the summertime. Have some in the fridge. When you've been out working in the garden or in the kitchen. We'll do one more, but you see how easy that is. And the reason that I cut them in half first in order to core them is because I grow heirloom tomatoes, and they're often very non-uniform in size. And so it's very difficult sometimes to get the skins out of the little creases and crevices, and homegrown tomatoes tend to be cat-faced, where they get on the bottom, where they get spots. And so you have to cut the cat facing out. It's not as if I went to the grocery store and bought a bushel of very uniform tomatoes. These are each one unique and distinctive. So, we're going to cut away now. I'll come back after all these tomatoes are peeled. And I clean up because, you know, peeling tomatoes is one of the 3 messiest jobs that can happen in a kitchen. Cleaning cast iron is one, and making lard is another, and peeling tomatoes. So we'll come back after it's done. You don't need to watch the mess. Okay, while you were away, I did all the dirty work. You can thank me later. But I'm going to tell you what I did. I have 6 cups of those tomatoes that we peeled, chopped. And by the way, I have enough to do another batch. So I'm going to do 2 batches, but right now I'm doing only 1. I have 3 cups of chopped onions at 1/4 inch. I have 3 cups of chopped peppers. I have 1½ cups lemon juice. I have 3 cloves of garlic here that I've minced finely. And I have 1/2 cup of cilantro and 3 teaspoons of salt. Now, what I need to make sure you understand about this is, when I say I have 3 cups, 6 cups, 3 cups, and 3 cups, I mean dry measurement cups. I don't mean liquid measurement cups. So these should be chopped to about 1/4 inch and have a level measurement, and that's 3 cups. Now, our recipe for choice salsa calls for 6 cups of tomatoes and no more than 9 cups of low acid vegetables. It doesn't say that exactly. It says 9 cups. But for many years in consultations with master food preservers, what I know is, as long as you don't exceed the recommended amount of low acid vegetables, you have a safe product. And remember, we talked about earlier, the tricky thing about salsa is that it's a mixture of low acid and high acid that's going to be water bathed. So we have 6 cups of tomatoes, chopped, peeled, chopped, and sort of de-seeded. There's a few seeds left in here, but not many. Most of them have gone to the chickens. Then I have 3 cups of onions, chopped to about 1/4 inch. I have 3 cups of peppers chopped to about 1/4 inch. All of those were dry measurements. I have my finely minced fresh garlic cloves, 3 of those. I have 1/2 cup chopped of cilantro, and this is fresh. Now, I am counting this in my not more than 9 cups. If you're using dry, you don't even have to count it. This is the 3 teaspoons of salt, and this is 1½ cup of prepared lemon juice. You may substitute lime juice if you prefer it, but you may not substitute vinegar. Generally speaking, vinegar, 5% vinegar is half as potent, or it measures half as much to get the proper acidification as lemon juice. And that was prepared bottled lemon juice. I didn't say that well. Let me say it again. If you have a recipe that calls for a cup of lemon juice, it would take 2 cups of vinegar to equal that. And you're going to have a different taste. It's not going to be that good. So when you have a salsa recipe that calls for vinegar, it means it has been tested for vinegar to be safe. This recipe works with lemon juice. So we put this on the stove. We bring it to a boil. We let it simmer for 3 minutes. And then we will can this baby up. Okay, here we have it, hot and spicy. I brought this to a boil, then I lowered the heat and let it simmer for 3 minutes. Speaking of hot and spicy, I didn't tell you. You have your choice of peppers in the choice salsa. I use mostly bell because we don't like it too spicy. But I put a couple of jalapenos in with my 3 cups of peppers. And I put a couple of banana peppers in, so that we'll get a little bit of a sweet taste. So, going to start canning now. Going to work quickly. I have all of my utensils here. My water bath is heating up. It's at a simmer. My jars are in the roaster. Heated the water up. I have my lids and rings in the roaster also. It's turned off. We're going to work quickly. I will do 1 or 2 jars and then come back and show you the finished product. So let's start with getting a jar. Empty the hot water out. Funnel. You fill to 1/2 inch headspace, and that's here. 1/2 inch headspace is right there. And I actually have a funnel that marks that for you, but that's not the one I got. I'm not going to put so much of the juice. And now we're too full. Hold on, I have to get a spoon. Okay, filled it a bit too full. Headspace is very, very important. When the time is figured on a tested recipe, it's figured with a certain headspace, and you want the heat up and cool down to be just as it's timed. Okay, we're at 1/2 inch. Then we debubble, because even though it doesn't look like there are bubbles, there may be. We're going to need just a little bit more. Okay, this is vinegar on a paper towel. Clean it well. You don't want anything sticking. Then let's get our lid, which I have mine heated. You do not have to if you're using ball lids. You can just wash them. I've done it that way, it works fine. I have my hot water here, so I just put them on down in it. Hold it still. I always back my ring up until I make sure it's seated properly, and then go forward finger tight. I'm going to put this one in. You put them in one at a time. Be right back. We'll do one more, just so you get the picture. Empty your jar. Get all the water out. Fill to a 1/2 inch. You want enough liquid to cover all your veggies. Clean with the vinegar. Lid. Ring. Finger tight in the canner. When I filled all the jars, I'll make sure that my canner has 2 inches water above the jars. And I'll come back and show you when we get to that point. Okay, we have 2 inches of water above our jars. We have 5 pints of salsa. We'll put our lid on. When it comes to a rolling boil, we'll set our timer for 15 minutes. Okay, our timer's going off. Our salsa's done. We're going to take it out. Just a couple of housekeeping things I want to pass on to you. The reason we put the jars in one at a time was because we want to prevent thermal shock. We have hot water, hot jars, hot salsa. You want to put everything in while it's still hot. So that's why I say I work quickly, and that's why we fill a jar, put it in, fill a jar, put it in. It's when we don't fill up 5 jars and then put them in. This is not actually a water bath. You don't have to actually have a water bath. This is my Tramontina stainless steel stock pot, and in the bottom I have a rack out of a pressure canner. Just fits. You must have a rack, but as long as you have a rack, you can use any large pot that will hold your jars plus 2 inches. I could not do quartz in this. I would have to get a regular water bath because it's not tall enough to do quartz and have 2 inches above it. These are pints. This recipe calls for pints or half pints. You may not can this recipe in quarts. I'm not aware of a recipe for salsa that comes in quarts. If you find a tested safe recipe from a tested safe source, then you can do it in quarts. This is pints because the recipe allows for pints or half pints, processed for 15 minutes. Now on the thermal shock issue, it works when you're taking them out too. So when you're taking these out, you don't want to be in a place that has a draft, and you're going to let things cool down naturally. I generally let them sit for 10 minutes after I turn the water off. I didn't. So I'm going to come back to you in about 7 more minutes. Okay, I'm back after having almost made a big mistake. We've now waited long enough for our jars to cool. As I was telling you earlier, we don't want them in a draft. We don't want sudden heat changes. We don't want our jars to pop. So I've let them sit for their 10 minutes. And here is our beautiful choice salsa. We will let this sit undisturbed for 12 to 24 hours. We will then take the rings off, check and make sure that the jars are properly sealed. If I find one that hasn't sealed, I can either refrigerate it or rejar it and reprocess it. And since I'll be doing this again tomorrow, I may do that if I find one that doesn't seal. I rarely have a jar that doesn't seal. If you have too many that don't seal, you want to check your process. There we go. That will be so good. let you see the salsa. Thank you for joining us on Debbie's Back Porch. I invite you to join us on Facebook at Safe Canning by the Book on Debbie's Back Porch. We'll put the appropriate links to the choice salsa recipe and to the Facebook groups that make up the community of Debbie's Back Porch. I hope to see you there.